In this video, we're going to learn about lists. Lists are really just a way to group together lots of different boxes that store data. And lists are a special type of variable. So if we click on the Variables tab here, we can make a list, and like for any variable, we need to choose a name for it. So let's call it myFirstList. And then we can make this variable global, or we can make it local. Here we're making it local, so that means that this sprite only will be able to see myFirstList. So let's go ahead and create that. And here you have all the variable blocks that you would need to modify our list. In the stage area, you can see myFirstList here, and you can see that this list is empty and that the length is 0. So let's go ahead and create a program that starts when we click on the green flag, and then something that we always want to do with variables is initialize them. The way you initialize a list is that you empty it. To empty it, you can say delete all the items of myFirstList. And if you run this, you can see that our list is still empty. Okay, so let's add something to our list. So here we're adding a value. Let's call it value 1 to myFirstList. And you can see that if I run the program, now we have a value in our list. This value is in position 1. This index here is actually very important because that's what allows us to retrieve the different boxes in the list. And you can see the length of the list has increased by 1. All right, let's add a second value. Value 2. Now you can see we have 2 items in our list with index 1 and index 2, and we have a length of 2 for our list. So how would we retrieve the items in the list? Well, let's just go ahead and print out something. So for example, say, and then we'd like to pick out item, let's say number 2 of myFirstList. And here you can see it prints value 2. And so this 2 here is the index, and that's what we're using to retrieve an item in the list. All right, excellent. Something else that we like to do in the computer science world is iterate over a list. So that means that we want to read all the items in the list, one after the other. And in this case, I'm just going to print them out. So what do we need? We need some type of loop. And here I'm going to use repeat until. Okay, so we want to repeat until we've reached the end of our list. And what we're going to be doing is printing out the value of one item in that list. So let's go ahead and say, and we want to say one item in the list for 2 seconds. Except for here, we'd like this item number or this index to be 1 and then to be 2, right? So somehow we need this index here to be a variable. So let's go ahead and make a variable and let's call it index. Let's make it local to this sprite. Okay, and let's initialize it to 1. So let's go ahead and initialize it to 1. And then here what we'd like to say is we'd like to say item index of my first value. And this index should be equal to 1 on the first pass of the loop, and it should be equal to 2 on the second pass. So what we want to be doing is we want to be changing the value of index by 1. And so we're going to keep looping through this, but we want to stop looping once we've reached the end of the list. So how do we test that? Let's go ahead and pick a Boolean operator. And the way we test this is we want to check if our index here, if our index is bigger than the length of the list. As soon as the index equals 3, then we'll be bigger than the length of the list, and we know we'll have finished iterating through this list. And you can see that there's a length of myFirstList here. So let's go ahead and run this, see if it works. There we go.